Hello guys, welcome back. And today we shall be discussing about the functions, taking this chapter ahead and solving the quadratic functions. In the previous tutorial, we had discussed about the basic fundamental theory of function, domain and range, the difference between the function and the relation. So let's take this topic further now. Before we proceed ahead, let's revisit the concepts that we had discussed in the previous classes. That when we discuss about the quadratic expression, this thing comes to our mind, which is termed as quadratic expression ax squared plus bx plus c. And if we equalize this thing to 0, it will become as our quadratic equation. So now if we try to write this above expression down in terms of function, it will take this form and this becomes your quadratic function. You have to remember one fact that a, B, C mentioned here are all constant where a is never equal to 0. The fact behind a not equal to 0 is that if a by chance is equal to 0, then the quadratic function will never exist because bx plus c will not be termed as the quadratic equation or expression. So take care of that. Let's proceed ahead and classify this quadratic function into two types, which are very simple: monic and non-monic. Monic is the case when the coefficient of x square is equal to 1. In simple words, we can say that our value of a is equal to 1. And non-monic is the case where the coefficient of x square is equal to -1, that is a is equal to -1. Examples are mentioned here, which will give you some idea about the monic and non-monic quadratic functions. Let's check the graphing of the quadratic functions. Mostly you will find that the graph of the quadratic functions form a parabola. Now the orientation is determined by the coefficient of the x square. In the case when the x square is negative, you will find that your graph will be somewhat like this, and this is termed as concave down, the graph orientation. And in the case when the value of x square is positive, you will find your graph of this kind, and it is termed as concave up. This is a very generalized graph I have mentioned here just to give you the idea that on the basis of the value of x squared, the coefficient of x squared, the graph will take this form: concave down and concave up. You can simply correlate the concept of concave lens and concave mirrors from science to compare those concepts with this graph names, that concave down and concave up. So I think so we are all set to discuss one simple example of a quadratic function. The function is given to us here and we have to find out the four answers to the questions: the graph orientation, x and y intercepts, axis of symmetry, we shall be discussing this thing here, and vertex of the graph, the point of the graph. Okay, the first question will be very simple. The graph is concave up. I just determined from the basis of the coefficient of x squared. It is positive, so my graph will be obviously concave up. Second point will require some calculation. So let's begin. Find out the x-intercept first, and in that case you have to first of all take the value of y is equal to 0. So this equation will be formed in this way. And now we shall be solving this quadratic equation by using the factor method. I am discussing the factor method here for those who are still struggling with this concept. So to begin with, you have to first of all identify the coefficients of first and the last term. In this case, they are 1 and -3, but we shall be taking the number 3 for simplicity. And once you have got the numbers, just write down their factors. And with the help of these factors, you have to create the middle term, that is -2 here. So I think so there is one case that if I multiply 3 with 1 and if I multiply 1 with 1, I can get two numbers when which if they are solved in such a way that 3 becomes minus and 1 becomes plus, so I can get -2. But maths does not work on the basis of assumptions, so we have a specific technique to assign the signs to this number. So focus on the sign of the middle term in the given expression. It is minus. This sign you have to assign to the bigger number out of the two, which is 3 here. and you have to focus on the sign of the last term, which is minus. So the sign assigned to this 1 will be exactly opposite to the sign of 3, which is minus. So 1 will become plus. And now if you solve it, you can easily get your number, that is minus 2, and that is what we want. So we can simply split our 2x, sorry, minus 2x as minus 3x plus x. And I think so further solution becomes very simple, and you can get these two factors, and from the factors the value of x will be 3 and minus 1. So this becomes your x-intercepts, that is 3 and minus 1 for y is equal to 0. Okay, similarly find out the y-intercept by taking the value of x is equal to 0, which is very simple. You have to just replace the x with 0, and that will give you the value of y is equal to minus 3, and that becomes your y-intercept. Axis of symmetry is basically pretty simple. You have to simply take the average of the zeros of the above equation. As zeros means the roots of the equation, and in this case the roots are 3 and minus 1. So let's take the average of it, and you will land on the value of x is equal to 1, and this becomes your equation of axis of symmetry. Remember, in certain cases you can be asked that find the equation of axis of symmetry, but don't get confused, it is one and the same. The equation is termed as x is equal to 1 only. Okay, now once you have got the value of x from the axis of symmetry thing, you can simply find out the vertex of the graph by substituting this value in the above given equation, that is x square minus 2x minus 3, our original quadratic function. So write down that here and replace x with 1 and calculate the value of y, which happens to be minus 4, and hence your vertex will be this x value 1 and y value minus 4. So I think so we have found out all the 4 answers, and if we are asked to sketch the graph also, we can do that thing very easily now from the values that we have here, and the graph will be taking the form something like this. If you can notice here, the graph is having the orientation of concave up, the one which we discussed in the previous slide, and therefore the coefficient of x square is positive. Okay, so this was the simple example which we solved, and if you want to make it more simple, you have to just remember the steps when you are solving the quadratic functions. First of all, identify the coefficient of x squared to understand the graph orientation. Second point is that you have to find out the intercepts. For x-intercept, take y equals to 0, and you will land on two values, x1 comma 0, x2 comma 0. Similarly, for y-intercepts, take the value of x is equal to 0, and you will get this value 0 comma y1. The axis of symmetry is the average of the two zeros, that is x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and vertex will be obtained by substituting this value of x which you have obtained from the axis of symmetry into the original equation, which will give you the value of y, and that will become your y value, and vertex will be x comma y. So there are further more things to come, that how to solve the quadratic functions by the method of completing the square, by the method of quadratic formula, but that is the case that we'll be discussing in the next tutorial. So till then, take care of yourself, wish you all the best with the learning, and please do not forget to subscribe to our channel if you like this video. Thank you very much.